Oscar Wilde says, be yourself. Everyone else is taken, right? And Jean Shinoda Bolen says, when you recover or discover something that nourishes your soul and brings joy, care enough about yourself to make room for it in your life. Care enough about yourself to do that thing that brings you alive, that lights a fire in you. Care enough. It's what you're here for. I do have a tear in my eye from that one. Thank you, Roderick. So how often do we go through the day thinking, am I enough? Do we say it in the morning? Am I enough? Are we like that little bird that Dr. Seuss has going around saying, are you my mother? Are you my mother? Maybe you're my mother. Do we say that? Am I enough? Am I enough? I don't think we do, at least not in those words, but my guess is that we probably have that feeling quite often. And it can come in various ways. It can come in a way that says, you know, I was going to make a change here in my life, and look, I've fallen back into my old habits. Gosh, can't I get that right? Or it might look like, I have to prove myself to someone else. Or it could look like, I was going to say this thing, but I wasn't quite sure they would accept me, so I said this other thing instead. It could look like looking in the mirror and thinking, I've got to do something to change this. Whether that's, body shape or clothes or whatever. It could look like the belief that may be subtle that if I'm going to be happy, then I have to be thin or wealthy or in a relationship. Perhaps you've avoided people or opportunities because you think they're too good for you. I had that very thing happen to me. I was attending a symphony event, and there was a nice-looking gentleman a couple of seats over from me. And my first thought was, oh, that's a nice-looking gentleman. But the second thought I had was, he's probably out of your league. You hear that? That was the mind doing what it does. The mind saying, oh, that's too good for you. Now, why would that be impossible for me to, have a relationship with a nice-looking man? After all, I'm fairly accomplished. I'm an adult, right? But it's that feeling, that belief that, oh, I'm not quite up to things. Perhaps you have it on your job. There's something called the imposter syndrome, where we feel like, okay, I have the education and I have the experience and they gave me this job, but I'm really not quite as qualified as they think I am, but I'm kind of keeping that under wraps. It's called the imposter syndrome. It's so common, it has a name. And then there's the other insidious belief that says, if you really knew me, really like I am, you wouldn't like me. Very common. But I have to ask, what about you would somebody not like? I mean, what can be so bad? Do you wear your jeans twice before you wash them? Do you sometimes end up with mismatched socks? Perhaps you don't always put the recycling in the recycling bin. Maybe when you think you aren't going to get caught, you speed a little bit in your car. Those things are nothing. They're nothing. That belief that we have that you wouldn't like me, it's an insidious belief based on nothing. We didn't come in to the world with that belief. We came in pretty much a blank slate. We might have had some things impact us in the womb, but that came from the outside. It didn't come from within us. You know, where did we get that idea that every single thing in life that we do has to be perfect? Where does it come from? Well, there's a process, kind of an indoctrination process we go through when we land here on earth and, start our lives. And a lot of it has to do with things that we're told. Now, sometimes they're verbal things, and then sometimes they're nonverbal things. So verbal things might be something that would be helpful back then, but maybe not so helpful anymore, like you got to clean your plate when you're at the dinner table. Now, back then, we needed to learn to eat, right? But as an adult, that's not so helpful to me all the time if I'm looking to maintain a certain weight. Or something like, don't go out and play in the rain. It's like, oh, the rain. Oh, is that going to be scary? Or here's one, don't talk to strangers. Now, I get that, and I understand that we don't want our children to be taken advantage of. After all, their brains aren't fully formed, and they don't quite have a sense of who to trust yet, perhaps. But I wonder if we're taking that too far. I go walking in my neighborhood, and there are a lot of kids that I would say, even in their teens, that won't even look at me when I pass them by. I like to say, hi, right? A little smile, hi. So some of these things that we learned as a child, we should have grown out of them. They are things that are not helpful for us as an adult. Now, there are other things that we took on that were maybe nonverbal things. For instance, if there was some kind of trauma or dysfunction in the family. In my family, I never saw my parents argue. So I thought, in a good relationship, you never argue. How dysfunctional is that? What I didn't know was that they probably went to the bedroom and had their little discussion. And then, when they came out, they were all unified on everything. But I didn't know all of that. The first time I had an argument in a relationship, it was like, oh, this is really bad. I didn't know whether to shut up or whether just to say, okay, this is not working. It was dysfunctional. We picked those things up. And so those things tell us that we're not enough. It may be that you grew up seeing that other people had more than you financially, in what they wore in their clothes or cars they drove. Perhaps you got the idea that because I have less, I am less. So we pick up things from others. Now, another thing that happens to us is that the mind gets in the play here. Now, the mind is a wonderful thing. Its purpose is sort of to find out what doesn't fit. What of these three things, which one is different? And that was very helpful when we needed to say, okay, there's bush, tiger. Oh, right? But the way that it's taken to us now is just not helpful in many respects. When the mind finds something different, it's going to focus on it. And you may have noticed you have a project, you've done really well on this project, 20 things you did right. And then there was one that was, just kind of iffy. And you go home, and at night you're thinking about that one thing. And then maybe a week later, you're still thinking about that one thing. Maybe even a year later. See, the mind focuses on that one thing that was out of place, that one thing that didn't fit right. So it becomes critical. It becomes critical. And it will look for evidence that we're different from other people, that we're less than, that we perhaps don't deserve to have a good relationship. It will look for those things. the critical mind. Then something else that happens is that it starts comparing. How do I look versus how do you look? How do I talk versus how you talk? This comparison. Mark Twain said, comparison is the death of joy. It is. When I start comparing myself to someone else, then I find myself on the short end of that. There's a quote, I'm not the only one that figured this out, right? Taylor Swift figured this out. Here's what she says. She says, never, never, never compare yourself to the beautiful girls. There's always someone gorgeous who will make you feel like you're not. I've had comparison really steal my joy. I was at this beautiful retreat last month. We were doing yoga and spiritual practices, meditation, spiritual teaching. It was really quite beautiful. I felt quite elevated. And then at lunch, a woman started talking about a place, an event that she was going to be serving at, where I had served at last year at that same event. So what happened? My mind started going, was she asked to serve and I wasn't? See, comparison. Or did she find out about it and then volunteer to serve? And I just missed the email? And before you know it, my whole elevated sense of bliss was dampened. My energy dropped. And my mind took hold of that like a dog with a bone. And for the entire day, I was at a depressed energy. Thank goodness I worked my way through it. But comparison, it's a stealer of joy. The more we compare ourselves, the less satisfied we tend to be. Clyde Lee Dennis says, I'm going to read this. It's very good. Comparison is an act of violence committed against oneself. It's a toxic way to think, feel, and behave. Comparison constantly puts us down and makes us feel inferior. It creates a void in our hearts that can never be filled. Comparison stunts our growth and prevents us from achieving our full potential. Comparison is the enemy of happiness. Comparison. So then when the mind grabs hold of this, then we start to feel negative about ourselves. For instance, anytime we see something, we may think, oh, I'm the wrong one. Or, oh, I'm not doing that right. It's a negative feeling. And we may even think that there's some value in this. That by admitting all of those things that are just terrible about myself, that I'm going to get better. But Lori Duchesne says we can't hate ourselves into a version of ourselves we can love. See, I can't, by telling myself I'm a failure, I can't become a success. By telling myself I'm worthless and unlovable, it won't make me feel like I'm worth something and that I have love. Telling myself I'm not living up to my full potential will not help me live up to my full potential. So this negativity that we get is insidious. And so all of these ways that we pick up this idea that we're not enough, all of these ways, what is the fundamental problem? Exactly. We have forgotten who we are. We have forgotten who we are. See, all of these things that we're bringing up, they have no foundation. They're baseless. Because as the presence, we not only have the qualities of the presence, but we are the presence moving through life. The presence, this, may call it God, universal spirit, it desires to know itself in a myriad of ways, and therefore, out of its own beingness, it creates each one of us to know its own beingness. It's not like, okay, here I'm this bodily person, and I have to get more of that spiritual stuff in me. No, we are already 100% spirit. We are already 100% the presence of God itself. We are 100%. This is, thank God we're at a unity church, right? Because that's unity's first and second principle, actually. There's first principle, one presence and one power, and it's good. And then the second principle is that we're it. We're it. So we must be good. This presence is complete. There's nothing missing. There's nothing lacking. So how could we, who were made out of it, how could we be incomplete? How could we be lacking something? It's an impossibility. So I brought some tools with me today for when we're stuck in this comparison and critical mind and all of that, for us to get out of that from this place of, oh, am I enough, to the place where it's like, you bet I'm enough, okay? And I like acronyms. So today we have an acronym of PALS. We're going to become our best pals, okay? PALS. Now, the P stands for, once we find ourselves going down that negative road, pause and remember who we are. Say, wait, I'm the divine. I'm the divine. I'm not these things. It's a change in perspective. At this same retreat that I went on, I had this happen to me. It was really a beautiful moment. We were going to go into this process, and of course the mind, the ego mind, the protective personality mind is going, okay, well, maybe you'll see colors, or go really out there and be real spiritual while you're doing this process. I was, and then it was like, oh gee, give that up. But during the process, what I found that I actually had some physical sensations that were, a little bit unusual, and the mind said, oh good, like, oh okay, I did it okay, or I am somebody, or I am worth it. The mind did that. But I was so grateful that my intuitive self, which is the presence, my intuitive self immediately followed that with, oh, honey, there is so much love for you. There is tremendous love for you. Don't you know that if you had something happen, or if you didn't have something happen, that whatever did happen was perfect for you? Perfect. That it's for you. Either way. That this immense presence of love is always feeding us, fueling us with exactly what it is that we need. And that all of the flaws that we might have they're just props. See, when we came in, we said, oh, okay, came into this incarnation, it's like, oh, okay, I need to work a little bit on this thing over here. So we were given the exact things that we needed to work on that. They're just props. They're just things to allow us, these flaws, allow us to get to the other side, to where we can discover more truth. That's what they are. We want to be grateful for them. Grateful. It helps us. So the P pausing and remembering who you are. That's what happened to me, was that I had that moment of pause. Oh, I remember that I am part of this essence, this part of love, this immense love, and of course everything's in my favor. That's the P. The A in the acronym PALS stands for accept all of yourself. Accept it all. Not, okay, I have this thing about myself I like, maybe I'm 5'7". Used to be 5'7.5", but who's counting? Yeah, I'll accept that, but when I step on the scale, I don't want to accept that. See? No, we want to accept all of ourselves, all of it, flaws and all. Like I said, the flaws are just props. We want to be accepting, and not only accepting, but we want to revel in who we are. Be grateful for who we are. Everything is so beautifully organized. It's so by design. We want to accept our lives and love them. So that's the A. The L in PALS is love, and I'm going to get more specific. It's love in the solar plexus. So the solar plexus is an area just slightly under the rib cage right here. It is the seat of the mental body. It's also the place where self-esteem resides. It's, for those of you who have done a little bit of energy work, it's a chakra. It's the third chakra. Okay. Now, a lot of times our solar plexus is kind of locked down. Especially if I don't know about men, but especially women, you want to hold that stomach in. So, you got all this here locked down, right? But what that does is it doesn't allow us to breathe. It doesn't allow us to actually experience the love that is ours. It doesn't allow us to see that we are worth something. And so when we do the meditation, I'm going to do a little process to put love in the solar plexus. And that's something that would be great for each of us to be able to take with us to take home, that little process, to do it on a daily basis, if you could. So that's the L in PALS. And then the S is shine. Shine your light. Shine it. If I spend my time in comparison or competition, then I'm just striving to do what the other person does. I might get as good as them, right? But then what happens about this other thing that I was supposed to do, that was meant for me to do? It's totally left out. So shine. Oscar Wilde says, be yourself. Everyone else is taken. Right? And Jean Shinoda Bolin says, when you recover or discover something that nourishes your soul and brings joy, care enough about yourself to make room for it in your life. Care enough about yourself to do that thing that brings you alive, that lights a fire in you. Care enough. It's what you're here for. Reverend Michael Beckwith says, in order to dream, you must first have one, and it has to take you beyond the paradigm you're presently living. Second, you don't have to be perfect to start walking in the direction of your dream. Know that the dream will qualify you. See, that dream is put in us. That thing that is ours to do is put in us for a reason. It's ours to do. And so it will pull from us what we need to meet it. See, a lot of times this am I enough, it gets us and we think, oh, I have this desire. It kind of won't leave me alone to do this thing, but I don't know if I'm enough, I'm good enough. That is so opposite. It's like this thing was given to you because it's yours to do. We don't want to live our lives missing out on the very thing that the planet needs from us. So pause. The P, pause to remember who you really are. The A, accept all of yourself. Love is at the L, love in the solar plexus. And then the S is shine your light. When we can do that, then, as Dr. Seuss says, you are you. Now, isn't that pleasant? And indeed, each of you is your beautiful you. Now shine it.
It's not too late to join our Spring Path class. The first of the 3 classes was this morning, but you can join on May 19th and June 2nd from 9:30 to 11 a.m., and we'll provide the information from the first class. This class is a requirement for membership in our church, but anyone can join to learn about Unity Church of the Hills. See the website calendar for details. Award-winning author and channel Paul Selig returns to UCOH this coming Saturday and Sunday, May 11th and 12th, for his A World Made New weekend workshop. You'll find the registration information on the website. Join Sandra Vela, LUT, for her Paul Selig book study on the Book of Mastery beginning Tuesday, May 14th via Zoom at 6:30 p.m. See the UCOH calendar for details. Sunday, May 12th is Mother's Day, and we are once again honoring mothers here at UCOH with the 2nd annual Mother's Day Munch and Brunch. It is a mini tea party, and we want to invite all to come enjoy some delicious snacks, tea, and punch before the 11:30 service. It will be from 10:15 to 11:15 in Friendship Hall, and will be a wonderful time to connect. Grab a cup of coffee and a pastry, and join Reverend Jean Lein in Legacy Suite or on Facebook. She will be speaking on the value-led life. We have a special treat for the 11:30 Mother's Day service. Armand and Angelina will speak and present the music for the service. Then on Monday, May 13th, they will present a concert at 7 p.m. in the sanctuary. Register online or get your tickets at the door. Don't miss this unique and delightful couple. The service is in the sanctuary or online. Please join us.
Good afternoon. My name is Neil Feiereisel, and I serve on the Board of Trustees, and I have a couple of announcements for you today from the board. So I'm very excited to announce that the board is starting the search process for a new permanent minister. So in order to make you more aware of that, we're holding 2 congregational meetings. This will be in 2 Sundays from now on May 19th. We'll hold one at 1:30 in the afternoon, right after the service, in Friendship Hall, in person. And then we'll hold another one that evening at 7 p.m. on Zoom. So you'll have 2 opportunities. We'll share with you what that process will look like, give you a chance to ask any questions that you have about the search process, and also just share with us. We want to hear from you, your thoughts, your ideas, your suggestions about what we should be taking into account, what's important as we look for our new permanent minister. And so also as part of that, the board will also be selecting a search team in the coming weeks. And so if you would like to serve on that search team, please let us know. There are some forms out in the foyer where you can submit your name. There's also an online form that was in the Thursday newsletter. So for the next few weeks until the 19th, you'll have an opportunity to submit your name. And this is a very important task, team. It is going to be a lot of work for some number of months. We'd like you to pray over this and think about whether this is a way in which you can serve your community. Thank you very much.
Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I circulate, and I am grateful.